Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on 90s Plus. And sure, we had a few stronger thunderstorms last week, but it's not just you. It has been a really, really slow severe weather season here in Colorado. Our guest today is at the forefront of that. We'll get to that in just a second. But we're right around our lowest year to date statewide severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings here in Colorado in about 20 years. And we're running behind the norm in pretty much every category when it comes to severe weather so far this season. We're, of course, about halfway through the calendar year, but typically the bulk of severe weather season here in Colorado is in May and in June. So for a bit more on the how and why, and maybe a few extra gray hairs on Cory, meteorologist Cory Reppenhagen's beard, we're now joined by Cory for a bit more on all this. Cory, I'll start things off by saying we've noticed that you've been in studio here in May and June a little bit more often than you probably want to be. Is that right?
A lot more than I usually want to be. It's painful, man. It's been hurting me. I can.
Uh-oh. Oh, Cory,
All good?
looks like we had you cut out there for a quick second. Could you repeat what you just said? Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, brother. I don't know. Maybe the kids were playing on the PlayStation back there earlier, so I don't know if they're hogging my broadband or what. But yeah, it's the severe weather. It's been hitting home for me because I consider myself a storm chaser, a severe weather journalist and photographer at the forefront. So when Mother Nature is at her worst, I'm usually at my best. So it has been noticeable for me. And I think I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people, especially if you've lived on the Front Range for a long time, you've noticed that there has been a lack of severe weather. And really not just this year, but last year was pretty slow as well. I think after the 2014, 15, 16 seasons, I did a lot of reports on how the Front Range was considered by many to be the hail capital of the world because of our large hail reports and the mix of our population, huge population. So not a lot of places especially in the United States, get that much large hail in a heavily populated area. And we have not had any large hail reports in Denver this year. And that's, large hail is 1 inch in diameter or larger, which is the size of a quarter. And we did not have too many last year either. So it's been really slow. And this year, like you said, I mean, we may have, over the last few days, we may have gone ahead of 2002 maybe, but the number of tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings have been at a major low, and it's been noticeable, and it's been very strange.
And based on your perspective, I mean, I'll say this from my side of things is it looks like of late, a lot of the storms have missed at least the urban corridor, just the east and to the south a little bit. But I guess from a broad perspective, Cory, what are we seeing that's led to this general shutdown of severe weather over the last 2 months?
Yeah, so the main thing that we've seen is just a dominating high pressure at very strange times of the year. Like you had mentioned earlier, May and June are big severe weather months. That's when we expect it. And we've had our summer ridge where the subtropical high just builds in. We've seen that early. We saw that actually develop in the first week of April this year. We got a little bit of a reprieve in late May with some big synoptic storms, but they ended up kind of being too cold to get us severe weather. So really it's been, and what happens when we have that high pressure, that subtropical summer ridge build in like that, is we lose our severe weather ingredients, which number one is moisture. Obviously, a lot of days we have not had that, although the monsoon has supplied some of that moisture. We've felt the humidity in the air. So the next few ingredients where we want instability that is one of the major problems when we have high pressure, because what we want is to have cold air come in above the heating surface air, and that creates this instability. And when that air heats up at the surface, the sun starts to heat us up down here, and the air starts to rise. As long as it's getting into colder and colder and colder air, it's going to go up, and it's going to go up fast. And that's how we get that severe weather. But when there's that high pressure, you get layers of warm air where you're very warm at the surface, but unusually warm at the mid levels and unusually warm in the upper levels. So you don't get that huge plume of air rising quickly. And so I mean that high pressure, the jet stream has just not been there for us over, well, especially this year. It's been just high pressure dominant. And so when you lack that instability and to some point, moisture as well, you really start to get hurt. And then there is a third ingredient that has been missing, and it's somewhat related, and that's wind shear. So when you want a severe storm, you want it to be spinning. You want that storm to be turning so that it ventilates itself, and it's constantly, you have an updraft and a downdraft that's not getting in the way of each other. And so what we rely on to give us that wind shear, and that's the turning of the air as with height, we rely on the jet stream for that. And with the high pressure dominating over the middle of the country, the jet stream has been way up north. You've seen all these severe weather outbreaks in the Dakotas. You just saw some pretty crazy tornadoes up in Saskatchewan. So that's where the jet stream's hanging out. And so that's taking away that wind shear. So all our ingredients are just hurting. Even on those days where we do have the moisture, it's just storms that pop up and fall right back down because they don't have the instability or the wind shear to become severe.
Now, for you, this is not a great thing, personally, for you. For many of us, though, this could potentially constitute a win because I think a lot of us enjoy our cars without broken windshields on them. Generally speaking, there is also another positive I'll throw out there is that over the last 2-3 weeks on the Eastern Plains, while on the urban corridor, we really lacked the rainfall. There's no doubt about that. Just east of here, we've seen some pretty good soakers. Fort Morgan, I know Kit Carson County, Yuma County has seen some pretty good storms as well. So maybe that's the one silver lining. A, we've got less busted windshields, and B, there's still some moisture, especially east of Denver.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I've heard absolutely no complaints about this outside of my strange little community, because honestly, severe weather it's not really good for anything. It's not like you can't really find a reason why, oh, we actually, there's some good that we need this. It is strange indicator just because it indicates a major change in a long-term weather pattern, which can be strange. But is 2 years of low severe weather really something that's going to indicate some sort of big climate shift? I don't think so, but it's just strange. But you're right. I mean, it's been a good pattern for a lot of us because we have the monsoon moisture coming in, and we can kind of deal with that moisture without having any major troubles. Even though the Front Range has been hit by a couple of these in the areas, the big soakers have been in the mountains where we've seen 1 to 2 inch totals in a single day. On the Eastern Plains where we've seen 1 to 3 and 3+ inches per day. That is really beneficial, and that is what we want, and that is typically not what we see when we're in a severe weather pattern where the storms are racing across the Eastern Plains. And when I say Eastern Plains, I'm talking about when initially flattens. So Denver is in the eastern plains. So from really where the mountains end to the flatlands, that's the area that typically, you won't get as big the rain totals when we're in a severe weather type pattern, I don't think.
I guess that leads me to something you kind of touched on at the beginning there, a bit more about some of those climate implications. And admittedly, they're difficult. We know that when we're talking about even weather over the course of a period of a month or two, it's hard to latch direct climate implications there. But you did say, and I think I'd say safely too, that there is a bit of a strangeness to what we saw a lot of last year and this year. What are your takeaways when it comes to those possible links between a warming climate and this kind of strange, anomalous severe weather season to date?
Yeah, like the climate implications are always so interesting because you don't really think of, climate change in particular, global warming to have a lot of positive implications. But strangely enough, severe weather is one of those things where, at least for our part of the country, it may be kind of a beneficial thing, because if you think about it, those ingredients that we are looking at, those are ingredients that are going to suffer if, under this new climate model, where long dry spells, a lot of high pressure. So that's another thing we can't really decide, because we've been in this La Nina weather pattern locked in for a couple of years. And that La Ninas really tend to lend themselves to high pressure developing on the plains, especially the Texas plains, Oklahoma. That's where you get the sinking air when you hit in a La Nina pattern. But it's the same climate modeling shows a very similar thing, where you have a lot of high pressure dominating high pressure early in the season, late in the season. So we're talking about April all the way through December, where you're getting these a lot of high pressure sinking air over the western United States. And so that, you eliminate the jet stream, you eliminate the moisture, and you get this heating of the atmosphere where you don't get the instability, where it's just kind of hot, less hot, and then not quite as hot. You need that cold air to come in over the top of us to create that instability. And all those ingredients they don't look good in the climate modeling, going into the next 50 years, where so strangely enough, it fits. You don't see a lot of direct correlation yet in studies, but all the climate modeling will show you that you have less severe weather in the western plains during in a climate scenario, of the warmer scenario.
It's interesting because it's not just Colorado. I think the so-called tornado alley, western central Kansas, Nebraska,
Yep.
Oklahoma. I mean, we've seen some notable exceptions to that, but generally speaking, those seasons have been way down there as well, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. And that's and you have seen studies that are pointing to the shift in severe weather to the southeast and to the northern plains. And so that makes total sense. I mean, it makes sense in a La Nina scenario that we're in right now, but it makes total sense in a warming climate where Oklahoma, North Texas plains, Nebraska, eastern Colorado, that's not where you'll find the severe weather ingredients. You'll find it where the jet stream is going over the ridge, and where the jet stream is coming out of the ridge. So, and that's the northern plains and the southeast United States.
Well, Cory, a fascinating insight as always, even if it means something that is near and dear to your heart that is just not happening because of all those different ingredients. But
I will tell you this, brother. I ain't moving to Arkansas. I'm not chasing it. Whatever we get here in Colorado is what I will take pictures of. So we'll just see how it goes for us.
Plus, I hear not so great things about the road network in northern Arkansas if you're chasing, but
well, not easy to chase out there.
Meteorologist Cory Reppenhagen, thanks so much for joining us here on 90s Plus and giving us a detailed insight about why the severe weather season has been so darn slow so far here in Colorado here in 2022.
All right, brother. Always good to talk to you. And I'll just kind of cry myself to another sleep during the day. But it gives me time to report on all kinds of other crazy, interesting Colorado related atmosphere stories. So there's always something, man.
So always something here. It's to your point about not moving to Arkansas, I have the same feeling about there's always something. If it's
Yep.
not active, that's a story, and a special story because we're so dependent on the limited water we get a year here in Colorado, and so are so many other states.
Cool. Exactly, brother. Well, we'll keep it interesting, and I know you'll keep covering as well.
Yeah, thanks, Cory. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man. We'll see you next time.
See ya.